Another piece of legislation in the federal funding bill that was at the center of the government shutdown eliminates rules created to prevent food contamination, foodborne illness, and limit rules that regulate ultra-processed foods. President and CEO of the Ohio Restaurant and Hospitality Alliance, John Barker, joins me now to get his reaction. So, John, can you explain what your reaction is when you saw maybe the weakening or removing of certain rules here through legislation?
Yeah, we're always in favor of making sure we have the right kind of regulations, not over regulations, but the right kind of regulations to make sure that our food service, coming through to the public is safe. Right? And there's many safeguards in place, but it's almost like you can't be safe enough. There's so many ways that foods can have contamination, everywhere from where they grow in the fields all the way through the distribution process and making sure that they're even cooked properly.
People watching are probably like, why would this even be happening? Who's lobbying for this?
You know, it's always hard to tell what groups are pushing. In general, I think there's a lot of groups who just want less regulation on everything that's out there. And again, that's okay, but you can't take away the protection factors when it comes to things like food. And there's many others as well. But I think we're always looking for the right balance in this. And we, as an industry, if you talk to anybody that's in our industry who actually then serves the food to the customer, we take this very seriously. In fact, we have very specific safeguards and requirements, and many of us use something called ServSafe to make sure that people are trained appropriately in that last, handling of the food as it's cooked and it's served.
Yeah, no one wants to be known for getting people sick. The U.S. Public Interest Research Group found that in 2024, the number of people that were hospitalized or died from contaminated food in the U.S. had doubled. Is the number of hospitalizations and deaths going to increase now because of this?
I sure hope not. When something like this happens, we always get a second shot at it, depending on what's happening. There's a lot of things that got into the CR at kind of the last minute. It got, approved through the, approved through this earlier this week. And we go back and look at all those things. There's, for example, in that was a potential ban on hemp, which on the surface sounds like it's not a big deal, right? But there's many people that are interested in something like that to make sure that there's regulations but not a complete ban. So those are the kind of things that we go back and take a look at because many people right now are using things like THC in place of marijuana. And so that's an issue that we might look at over the next year to make sure that was it done right and what's the right thing to do.
What is the Ohio Restaurant Alliance doing to combat the lack of legislation that's now in place here? Will you continue to push lawmakers in certain avenues? What will you be working on specifically?
Yeah, so we have a National Restaurant Association team that lobbies in D.C. up on the Hill, right? So we work with them. We're probably in contact with them every single day on different issues. And so they rely on us to make sure that we're out talking to the restaurateurs because we represent 25,000 locations this year in Ohio. We're the seventh biggest state, so they want to hear, what we're hearing at the ground level, and so we relay that up and down. And then we actually have a program called Hill Runners, where we have restaurateurs across the state that have relationships with our members of Congress, and we make sure that they work those issues as well. So we're very active in this at the federal level. Of course, we're very active at the state level, but we make sure that we play on both levels.
And real quick, we're heading toward the holiday shopping season, people wanting to go out and celebrate, go out to eat. Are you expecting good profits for restaurants right now? What are restaurant owners telling you?
It's been a little bit up and down this year. You see a lot of numbers out there, and it's hard to tell sometimes. We've seen, I don't know if you've seen the numbers out of Chili's, which is just, that kind of a casual dining concept that was sort of not doing great for a number of years, and now it seems like for the last year and a half they put up some of the best same store sales gains that we've seen in quite some time out of any kind of a restaurant, and so that's very encouraging. On the other hand, we do hear from mom and pops that are struggling a little bit, particularly in those sort of weaker days of the week where people aren't going out as much. The traffic's down on their Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So it forces them to obviously, do better, over the weekends. And so, we're doing a lot to try to advise them on perhaps how to adjust their marketing and so forth. And the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season is very important because a lot of catering goes on, a lot of group meals go on, teams go out with their friends and, have lunches and so forth. So it's a really important time of year. Fingers are crossed.
Okay, John, thank you so much for joining us right here at